would like to ask Glenn any question.
What's the cost of living your purpose?
What is the cost of living your purpose? That's an interesting question, because sometimes in many things that we do, we've been taught to reduce everything to a financial cost. And I maybe respond by asking, what does it cost you to have a dream? In fact, I don't see living your purpose as a cost, but rather a reward. There's so much that you get from giving. Purpose demands that you give of yourself, not that you first get and then give. You've got to give, and in the giving, you receive. So I think for me, when the cost of pursuing your purpose, if one wants to look at it from a cost perspective, it's learning to say no to all the distractions of life, learning to say no to other people's dreams and ideas and plans for your life, and saying yes to that which God has called you to do. And when you begin to say yes to that, and that in that process there is a cost. You may have to replace some of the people that are superficial friends. You may have to not go to the movies when everyone else is going to the movies. You may have to do without certain things in the short term. But in the long term, you'll be able to reap something far greater than anyone else can. And I think for me, purpose is an interesting concept, because it really requires that you and I invest our life in developing something that only becomes that which others become aware of when we pass on. In other words, our departure becomes the beginning of that which we started. So you have to have the ability to see the finished thing, so that you can create the beginning, so that when you leave it can start, if that makes sense. And maybe you can think about that on your way home.
Yeah. Then you used to say you had no idea how you're going to feed your family, regardless you started and the way it came. You said
Purdy, thank you for saying that. Yes, I did say that.
Many times.
In fact, if you read inside the Map for Life book, we have our mindset is exactly that. We've been taught as a male, for example, and let me just talk about men for a moment, that you're the breadwinner of the family. It's your responsibility to have a good job, bring in a good income, and all these kind of things, and there's these kind of responsibilities. And with that mindset, when it comes to purpose, it does not comply to those rules. The rule says you must first have before you begin. Purpose says you must begin, then you'll have. In other words, money chases you down when you pursue your purpose, but when you chase money, it remains elusive. You can never get it. And so many people are in the race to chase money, and as a consequence never have enough. When you chase purpose, it requires that you step first and have the faith that when you put your foot down, there'll be something to support it. And what's remarkable is you begin to see God coming through. And Joshua experienced that in Switzerland, and maybe, I don't know if he touched on it this morning, but the provision was there, although he did not physically have it before. And so in the same way with purpose, I believe the provision for the vision has already been placed. You've got a step to reveal that provision.
Still on the purpose, when we've been talking on how to live in your purpose and
Yes.
pursue your purpose, but then how do you then get to, for example, how do you then identify your purpose?
All right. This is a big question that is on everyone's mind. You were born, there's a young person sitting right next to you. The question on her mind right now, and it'll come out of her mouth over and over, is why? And parents often answer with the word because. And that question is absolutely key to us discovering our purpose. The challenge that we face is that we've gone through a schooling system that kind of defines life in a box and says you must look inside the box for your purpose. And when people ask you, what do you want to do when you leave school? we look inside the box to find a career that kind of looks okay, but the one that we're looking for is not there. We're supposed to be adding something to the list, not choosing something from the list. And so the schooling system, in my view, is designed to teach us a skill that replaces our gifts and talents that we naturally were born with. And then we start trying to look how we can find something that links with our skill, and we think that's our purpose, when in all reality, we've got to be using our gift and talents to discover our purpose. The problem is that with a skill, you can see how you can make money, but with a gift and talent, it comes naturally to you, so you immediately think, but how could I make money doing that? And this is the dilemma that we find ourselves in. We're looking for the way to make money and position and title. Purpose says you're going to be unnoticed. There's not going to be the money. None of those things are going to be there in the beginning. They will come, but you've got to take that step first. And so the reason we don't find our purpose is we're not looking in the right place. We're looking inside the box instead of getting out of it and looking elsewhere. What I find interesting is young people, and there are a couple here today, in primary school, their main objective is to stand out. But when they go to high school and they turn 13, they want to fit in or blend in. And as adults, we've developed that kind of fear of other people. What will other people think? And as a result, we're looking for things that other people will be impressed by. Purpose is not that at all. So I'm not answering your question directly, other than to say that where you're looking right now is probably the wrong place. There's another place that you've got to look at, and you've never been taught about that. Maybe one last thing is this. The comfort zone is that place where people who exist live. Beyond the comfort zone is the place where people who really live exist. Now, you've been taught your whole life to avoid, not to go off the blanket as a baby, not to go out the door in case you fall in the swimming pool. We've been taught to live in the safe zone. But if your purpose is to create order out of chaos, you have to step into the place of chaos. In other words, you've got to go into the environment that you're fearful of, and only when you're in that environment can you begin to do what you were born to do. And so purpose has links to a lot of things that are foreign to us in our current way of thinking and approach.
Thank you. Two things that I want to ask Glenn before we close the session. Glenn wants to talk, if you use Map4Life methodology, there's a wheel of life, and he emphasizes the importance of getting that wheel right. What will you say to someone who's got a skew wheel, how to get it round? Because he says it's not about how big the wheel is, but the importance to get the balance right.
I think in general, life balance is important to everybody. Most of the conflicts that happen in a person's life is as a result of imbalance. So, people might go through divorce, people might go financial issues, all of these things, if you trace it back, it's because there was some form of imbalance. Terence was talking about the regrets that people have had in their life. A lot of those regrets can be traced back to this imbalance. So you may be strong in certain areas, and if you're familiar with Map4Life, there's 8 different areas which I've defined. You may be strong in some and weak in others. It's kind of like having a flat wheel when you go to your car after this event. The question first is, what should you do about the flat wheel? Some might phone a friend, others might call the breakdown, some might be educated enough to change the tire right there and then, okay, and change it. We do that with a car, a material thing, but we tend to want to go through life just with this really bumpy wheel. And so what I'm trying to suggest to people is that instead of trying to have a wheel that's performance driven, in other words, you want a 10 out of 10 wheel to impress other people, what's more important is just to get the bumps out of it, so that this wheel can begin to move smoothly. Because when it starts moving smoothly, you can begin to move faster, and you can begin to go towards your dream that much quicker. So my suggestion to people is, when you look at these different areas of life, instead of trying to increase a score, let's say you got a 4 out of 10. Instead of thinking about how do I get to 10 out of 10, you start by saying, how can I make this 4 a 5? And what could I do to make that small little shift in the right direction? And when you begin to do that, slowly but surely, life starts working a bit better. Will you ever achieve a perfect wheel? If you're growing, no. If you're feeding your mind with new things, learning new ideas, expanding your abilities, that wheel will never be perfectly round. What's important though is that you're constantly aware of these different areas and that you're doing something about it to improve it.
Awesome. I'll take one question before we close. Anyone?
Why don't you tell everybody what you did after you left the corporate world?
Oh yes.
That's very interesting.
Okay. I'm honored to say I'm Map for Life coach. I was trained by Glenn, which is such an honor. I'm also responsible for Map for Life Montana. We will be reviving the Map Cafe in Montana. So the guys from Pretoria North, please spread the word that we are going to be up and running from July actually, henceforth.
Today is the day.
Yes, and I'm also an image consultant. I have my talk show. And yoga, yes.
So past Miss United Nations, Mrs. United Nations,
Yes.
past, and she's currently a TV presenter. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds nice. That makes you understand now, Purdy, hey? And so so a small package with lots inside.
Yeah. Awesome. We'll take last question. I think what excites me most about Map for Life, I love to share the clip of Lupita.
Yeah.
You know, it's so exciting to see the global superstar acknowledging the Map for Life methodology. There is something special about it. When someone asks, what is this map, I'll just send a clip, and that will say a lot. And because remember, these guys are so particular. And when Glenn says, I want to see Map for Life in 200 countries by 2020, and how many countries is it operating now?
We have members in 94 and trainers in 22.
Absolutely, and one translated in
Swahili,
Afrikaans.
Afrikaans,
Zulu is
French,
coming, French is there.
Russian,
Yes.
sorry, Polish, I'm sorry, yeah, and Russian, sorry, Russian,
And
Polish,
yes. And I
Italian, Portuguese.
Awesome.
There you go.
Yes, awesome. So that says a lot about Map for Life. So if you're a mentor, a coach, you want to be part of the coaches of Map for Life, I would highly recommend you come on board. Being on business, when I launched my business, before I being active really with Map for Life, you know, if you do your flyers, if you do your logos, if you do your banners, do yourself a research and see how much it's going to cost you. But the support that you are getting in Map for Life, it's just priceless. It's next to giving us everything, next to nothing. If you're in business, guys that are in business will really agree with me. Any questions before we close?
I'm very intrigued. Who is going to map the additional 5 countries of the world that doesn't exist yet? Because there's 195 countries in the world.
Ah, okay. Well, it depends on what list you look at. You can get them from 196, I think. But if you say 195, I look at America. You know, America calls themselves the world. So when they talk about they're the best in the world, they're saying they're talking about their country. And I view many of their states as they're bigger than countries. For example, like California is a huge component of America. So in those contexts, you also have places like India, which over a billion people live, and likewise with China. So when it comes to large places like that, in fact, there's 8 really big countries around the world. And with those, we look at the states and regions as a territory. But some lists will give you 249 countries, depending on how it's been divided. But thank you, thanks for pointing it out. Maybe it's a prophecy, there'll be 200 by 2020. Yeah.
No. Okay. Glenn, we've got someone coming for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
today, how would you inspire that person to keep on coming back to me for Life Talk?
I don't think I need to inspire the person to come back. If you learned something today and found value in it, I think you owe it to your purpose and your vision and your dream to constantly invest in yourself. The fee that you pay to come here is just to cover the costs. There's no. Often people look at the cost of something, but very few times do they look at the value of what they're getting. I think it's not about looking at this to decide whether you should come back or not, but rather look at your purpose and your vision and determine whether it's worth investing in that. If it's if that is important enough to you, and I believe it's the most important thing, then when you've made that connection, investing in a regular meeting of this nature will become a priority in your life. Very often people will find the most interesting reasons to give, they call them excuses in real life, not to come. It's too cold, too hot, my aunt, I kicked my toe, whatever the case is. We've heard all the excuses. In fact, we've got a book, it's about this thick of, if you want to choose one. But that just doesn't cut it. Either you're serious about where you're going or you're not. If you're serious, then be here. It's not about promoting Map for Life, it's about your purpose. We want your purpose to be given birth. The world needs you to show up and manifest that which you were created to do. And this is just one opportunity for you to begin to invest in yourself so that you can grow in confidence, that you can step in boldness, and that you can fulfill that which you're called to do. So I hope that encourages every one of you, whether you're here for the first time, the second time, or the 10th time. Make sure that you're here, because the spirit of lack, the spirit of limitation, the one of hindering and the one of devouring is going to constantly be there to keep you from investing in your purpose. So deny it the opportunity to cause you to quit. Just keep going and join us each time.
Awesome. And in closing, I always get excited when I see the family doing things together. If you look at the wheel of life, spiritual, emotional, financial, and the family is there. Mm-hmm. And I see you've got, I call her Map for Life First Lady, your wife, and your kids. How do you get it right? Because they always say the master cannot minister at home, inverted commas, right? How do you get it right?
There's one thing that I can maybe share, is that when a teenager is born, obviously at the age of 13, they do something that comes absolutely natural to them, and that is to put pictures up in their room. And most times the picture that they will be putting up there is of somebody other than their parents, because the image that their mother or father is selling them is one that they don't aspire to. And so I'm saying this with caution perhaps, but I realized in looking back that because I'm pursuing a dream, not because I have great wealth, but because I'm pursuing a dream, because I talk about my dream constantly, because I'm working on it constantly, that has inspired my children to have the freedom to pursue what they are passionate about. And in that, I would love them to be engaged with Map for Life and to continue the legacy, but that's not my calling. That's not my call on them. God has a calling on their life, so my objective is to make sure that they discover their God purpose, and that I do whatever I can to equip them to fulfill it with passion. And it's just that when I started looking back, suddenly I found that my children were excited about the fact that Map for Life existed. Why? Because it gave them identity. They didn't have to look elsewhere for it. And so I don't know if that answers the question, but I think the greatest thing that you can do for your children, for your family, is to become passionate about your dream, have something that you're working towards, as opposed to doing something for someone else and getting home and complaining about the day. If you've got a dream, pursue it. That's the greatest thing you can do for your children.
Awesome. Let's keep playing.
Thank you.
Our other client said he started coming to Map for Life talk since 2014, and he has never missed any talk because every time when he comes, there's a diamond he collects from B's talk. And I hope today you've collected your own diamond, and when you get home, you're gonna polish it and extract more out of it. And thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure to have you. Thank you.
Great. Judah? I'll just let Judah close quickly.
Okay, thank you so much for all the speakers who were really
Please up there. Forward.
I think we're all motivated. We are all inspired. And I think we're looking forward to really take some steps that we need to take. And I think there are big questions now in our lives. Why? What is happening now? What is the next step? I think one of the questions that Glenn always asks is, most of us, we ask, why am I alive? Why am I alive? But then he just twists the sentence and say, I'm alive, why? So it's a different mindset when you say, why am I alive? But the twist of it is, I'm alive, why? That's when now the issue of purpose comes in. So now you find the reason why you are alive. So really thanks, Glenn, for that.
Okay.
And I think purpose, it is your promise to humanity.
Yeah.
It's your purpose. My purpose, your purpose is a promise to human beings. If we can't fulfill our purpose, we owe it to humanity. Think about the people who discovered all this electricity, everything, all the discoveries. If those things were not discovered, where would we be today? So what is your promise to us today? What is it that you owe to us? You owe us something. Now the question is, will you fulfill it or not? Because if you are not going to fulfill it, there is a law that you owe to this human race. And your purpose also, it is your legacy. How will you be remembered? What's your legacy? To yourself, to your kids, to this life, to this human race. So what is my legacy? And really, Glenn, thanks for the beautiful legacy that you are really inspiring us to really give us this motivation to find ourselves. What's my purpose? Why am I alive? Why am I here? So really thank you for this. And
Thank you.
another thing, thank you guys for spending these 3 hours together. We believe and we hope that it was not fruitless. We believe that, yes, you see value in this. The 200 rands, the one is nothing compared to really what you've gained, from the different speakers. I think you talk about the dash. I think one of the guys says, life is interruption of eternity. The interruption of eternity, that's your life. Now, during that interruption, that's your purpose. So what kind of a legacy, what kind of interruption has taken place in our lives? So we really want to encourage you and fulfill and pursue your purpose. And there's a lot of materials, the DVDs, the CDs, all those things, they are just here. After this, please come and just browse and check which ones is relevant for you. I think as Glenn said, from 1 pager to over 400 pages. Small steps. These are some of the structured processes that will help us to really fulfill our purposes. Remember also, as human beings, we need structured processes and systems and environments. MEP Cafe, MEP for Life, those are environments that helps us to grow as seeds. And these are structured processes for our minds. The mind is so stupid, isn't it? It needs structures, like what you talk about. You need that structure, you need that process, you need those systems to help our mind to really be able to get this and move on. So really, we wish you all the best and have a purposeful life. Thank you so much.
Great, well done. Thanks, Judah.